It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, May 22nd, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is talking all things Cam York today.
This will be a good one.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. There's no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. So, Russ, we talked about Travis Sanheim in our earlier versions of the season in review discussions we've been having, and wanted to talk about Cam York as well, mostly because they're partners and they're the top D pairing for the Flyers and have been a crucial part of this team. We know that Cam York got the Most Improved Player award this season, which I think was very well deserved. And I think this pairing and Cam York were such an important part of the success that they did have this season. Of course, he was drafted 14th overall in 2019 in the infamous switcheroo or whatnot with that draft pick. But he will be coming up on a contract year. He's currently making 1.6 expiring next season, which was a Briere contract. He will be arbitration eligible though. And so this upcoming season is going to be really interesting for him. I think that, there's a lot to discuss about goals for next season, which we will get to, but what was your key takeaway about Cam York's season?
Yeah, I felt like considering the job they asked him to do, be a top line guy, play on the opposite side, he did really well. There's still things he needs to work on, and I think he could be better on the other side. But, when you look at the configuration of the Flyers, it's almost a guarantee he's going to play that side. I did put up another configuration they could possibly do, and we could talk about that later. But yeah, I thought he did well, and especially under the circumstances. But if he's going to, roll out his career playing on the opposite side on the top line, I think it's going to take away from what his point totals can be.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to make here, despite the improvements that he made on that front. In his exit interview, he talked about how proud he was of he and Travis Sanheim's effort this season. He gained confidence when he went back to the left side and was super impressed with Sanheim's ability to play both. He acknowledged that Sanheim was better at playing both sides than he was, which is true. So it was good to see that he really recognized that. He did push through being banged up a little bit. And he said he probably should have missed a couple of games with a shoulder injury, but played through it because it was around the outdoor game and he didn't want to miss it. He wants to get stronger, but at this, for this off season, he's really healthy and it should be a true off season for him. He was one of the guys on the team that we had mentioned that he called out Dan and Derek with the training team and that his body held up really well overall this season and that he wants to, make more progress and see some more improvement on his defensive play.
Yeah, I think that the physicality part, if he gets stronger, that'll help him. I mean, he blocked a lot of shots. And if you're asking Cam York to block that many shots, it's definitely going to cut into his offense. And then, like I said, if he's mostly going to play on his wrong side, it's going to cut into his offense. So then, the place that you're going to find or look for the more offense is on the power play. And while he had 10 goals, he didn't have any on the power play.
Yep.
And you're not expecting that from Cam York. And I don't know if he's going to get 10 even strength goals every year. That's hard to do. So you want to get some production on the power play goal wise. You're always going to get assists, but you do want that production to improve there because we all look at him like he's going to be that guy.
Right. So he had 171 of his 1,854 total minutes were on the power play, which is, I think,
Okay.
enough to score a goal or two. But
Do we know?
it's not so much that we expect him to get 10 or 12 goals just on the power play here.
Right. Do we know how many minutes he played on his offside? Like I know he played, like you were saying at the beginning, Sanheim probably played more um,
Yeah.
on his. Like I'm not sure how they're going to do it next year. Like I don't know if it's going to end up with York on his true side on the left side and Sanheim on the right, or I mean, where do you think they're going to end up with that?
I don't know. I think it's a really good question. I think it'll depend on what they decide to do across the board, but I do think that York is going to spend time this offseason working on both sides just to be safe. But I think, if you look at some of his stats and you mentioned the 0 goals on the power play, he did take a lot more shots this season,
Hmm.
which was good. And his percentage of shots that got through was 46.7%, which was much higher than it was the previous season. So while you would like to see that above 50% of your shots getting through, I think to make an improvement on that front was really important.
Yeah, I think it was important. I think I remember at least 3 or 4 of his goals coming in close though. So I still think he needs to work on his shot accuracy, like from like
Yes.
point and from further away. Because if I'm gonna guess, if I looked at a chart, I would see that he scored a fair amount of those closer than you'd like. But they still went in, and that's good. But I don't think he could do 20. I don't think he's that guy. But he probably could do 15 or 12 to 13 every year. But if all of a sudden it switched and he did 10 on the power play and, 4 or 5 5-on-5 and then somebody else made up the slack, it would really change the team.
Yeah, I think so. And you look at his points from last season. He played only 54 NHL games in the 22-23 season. So again, you kind of got to look at rates a little bit, but you can at least look at the proportions here and say he had 2 goals and 18 assists in the previous season. This year he had 10 goals and 20 assists. So the ratio of goals to assists changed quite a bit in his favor. And if you look at it, all 10 of those goals were scored 5-on-5. I think that bodes well for him as far as creating more opportunities for himself because he can see it happen 5-on-5. Now that just has to translate to the power play, right?
Yeah, I think the big thing is the coaching staff had more faith in him this year, ice time wise, and so
Yes.
clearly, he got more.
Well,
So like,
sometimes too much. Let's be they
yeah, I
overused him
mean,
to some degree.
they gave him heaps, but like when you're talking about almost 3 minutes a game average more ice time, that's a
Yeah.
lot. And that's
Yeah.
a big reason why those numbers went up. So he was always capable of doing this as a baseline. I feel like this is his baseline. Now I feel like he can go above this.
Right, but obviously we don't want his average time on ice to continue to be 22-37. I think,
No, like
you know
20 and a half, 21 would be really good.
yeah. I think that's would be much better, but, when he had that stretch of games where he and Sanheim were playing 25 minutes a game, that was not good for him either. So
No,
and I
it
think
wasn't.
he said as much, right? That,
Yeah.
that's when he was kinda the 2 of them were playing through a lot when that was happening, and especially when all those injuries happened and there was, like, nobody left. So the 2 of them were carrying, like, the load of the team, defensively. But I do think that this season provided a really good roadmap for him as far as how to improve and what to work on and what to focus on to address particular things in his game. And now he can translate that experience into more things.
Yeah. Like I said, the biggest thing, like for Sandheim, he had to get stronger, right? Especially if he was going to
Right.
be a number one. He managed to do it. York's not quite there yet. Not quite there. And that's something I feel like could really transform his game. could make him faster too because if his legs get stronger. So that's something where I'd really like to see that improvement this summer. Like he's got to come in and be. It doesn't matter if he's got more muscle or whatever. He doesn't have to take any Instagram pictures to show us. He just needs to be actually stronger. So whoever,
Um,
yeah,
he did take a really nice picture of a fish he caught, which is so
that's
typical,
fine.
but
No, no, that's
I
good. I
love
like
it.
that.
He did catch a
Yeah,
giant fish very recently,
yeah.
so
No, I
good
follow
for
Cam. I
him.
like that. But we don't need to see anything shirtless. He just needs to come in and like just you know has with the people he works out with, have there be a strength meter from last year and just know that, you could tell that he is stronger. He doesn't have to lift more weights. It's not about that. Sometimes it's about that tendon strength. But yeah, like as an example, this year he was pretty good on puck battles, 55%,
Yep,
but his hits per game were only 0.44. So he's
yep.
winning those puck battles with the stick. If he can win them a little more with the body and dislodge the puck, there's more opportunities for plays for his team. So I think that's the part of it. He's almost there.
All right. Well, there's more to talk about in terms of his goals for next season and maybe some outside the box thoughts on ways to be creative about his game. We are going to talk about those coming up next.
There's no I in team, but there's one in Indeed. And that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed's the hiring platform where you could attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. And with Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates who resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed Data US. One of the things I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy because you get one step closer to the hire by immediately matching you with quality candidates. Even better, Indeed's the only job site where we only pay for applications that meet your must-have requirements. Join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
You just talked about Russ, his need to work on his strength over this off season in order to win some more of those physical puck battles versus just winning the stick battles. And I find that really interesting, just related to the pairing of Sanheim and York, because I feel like they're both more skill guys than physical guys, but
Right,
Sanheim has transformed his game. But like somebody's got to be the physical guy in a
right.
pairing, and I think that would enhance them as a pair if both
Yeah,
of them could take on some of that responsibility, and it would make them harder to cover from an
right.
opposing team.
Right. Yeah, the matchups against them, then you might not, you might want to match up a bigger line against them now because all of a sudden, if you have a smaller line, they may be able to take advantage of them. Those kinds of things could work in your favor as a team. And yeah, the matchups are everything, I think. I've always felt that.
Right, and I think that's not only will it help York as an individual and his skill set, but it will help the team
Right.
overall,
It'll help the
in
team.
the yeah, and I think that's really important. I think, one of the interesting things is that Cam York's, zone starts were exactly 50-50 in the offensive zone and defensive zone, and I think if you give him, if he gets stronger, they'll be able to put him on defensive zone starts a little bit more.
Yeah, he could
And
maybe go
when
up
you
in the 60s on that.
yeah, yeah, and I think that will also help the team, and I think
Oh,
it'll
yeah.
help, trickle down so that it will allow some of the other pairings to focus more offensively than maybe they have before as well.
Yeah, I think, what did we say? It was 50% for York in defensive zone. I think Nick Seeler probably picked up some of the slack on that. And maybe, if next year if Risto's playing, then Nick Seeler can continue to pick up like a little bit of that slack, and then it frees up Risto maybe for some more offense if they want to try that again. Because Sealer can only give you so much offense. Maybe there's a little more in the Risto tank. There started to be a little bit. We got to see if he's even healthy. But I'm just saying there's an option for somebody else to do it, even if it's Ronnie Haddard, whoever. And so that's I just look at it that way, and I'm like, yeah, let's see him get in the 60s.
Yep.
Let's see somebody else pick up the slack. Maybe they get more offense out of their defense that way.
Right, and Cam York is the use defense to create offense kind of guy, so I think that would
Yeah.
work for him in his skill set. One thing I think he does need to work on is his discipline a little bit. His PIM rate went up a little bit this season, and I think that it can work even getting more physical, because if you do it the right way, then you won't run into those problems.
Yeah, he's getting guys, dragging guys down from behind because they either
Mhm.
overpower them or they get just ahead of them, and that's what happens when you're playing on like a top pair and you're playing against some of these great guys in the league. So yes, if he got more physical, the PIMS would probably go down, because
Yeah,
I know that seems counterintuitive, but it's not the dirty hits we're talking about. We're just talking about the in the corner hits where you get the puck back.
exactly, exactly. Do you think he should get more power play time or less based on this past season?
I mean, unless his shot gets more accurate, it's going to be less. And Drysdale's going to get the most, or should. And then after that, I'll worry about it if they're going to keep using Zamula a little bit, fine. If they're going to use Adder eventually, great. But York has really only shown himself to be a good distributor of the puck and not a good shot. So use him in other places. Don't keep him on there too much.
Yeah, I think he's a good second unit guy,
Yeah,
some of the time, and I
right.
think that's where he should be, and I think they should suss out what happens with the other defensemen, whether it's Addard, whether it's Zamula. I think that, there are other guys that could potentially do better on the power play, which is so wild to think about relative to when he was drafted. But that being said, I think
He's
it's
changed
okay
as a
because
player. Yeah, the
yeah,
profile on him has changed.
and I think that's okay because his
Yeah,
profile is good. It's just a different kind of good than it
right.
was.
Yeah, he's
So
different
I
from his juniors days, from
Yep,
the NTDP.
absolutely. Do you think there's like a particular stat goal he should have in turn? Like, should he be scoring 15 goals and getting 20 to 25
I think
assists?
40 points. I think gets to 40 points, and if he gets to 40 points, he'll be at least a $5 million defenseman. If he has a big year and gets like 55 points, the Flyers are in trouble, because then you're talking
Yeah,
like 6.5 million. Talking about Ryan
right,
McDonough kind of money, and that's going to run them some trouble. But 40 should be his goal because he's blocking a lot of shots. I saw he had 170 blocks, and so if the hits go up and the blocks go up, he's probably not going to be able to get many more points. But he definitely there's definitely missing hidden points on the power play for goals, and then otherwise 5-on-5 just with a better team.
right. I think it'll be a very weird world if Cam York ends up with a bigger contract that Travis Sanheim has right now. But
Anything's
I
possible.
suppose anything is possible if you have a monster year in your contract year. Uh, we saw this pairing be together for most of the season, but there were situations where they had to mix it up. Do you think this is a time where you go with the hot hand, so to speak, with this defensive pairing and continue it? Or are there other options here?
Well, there's other options. I mean, assuming everybody's healthy, um, you could go Sanheim, Drysdale, York, Risto, Sealer, Adder. You could do that. And then you're going to say, well, what about Zamula? And Zamula might be the odd man out, or he could be that 7 and the 11-7 that we don't like.
Right.
But you could do it that way, and it keeps, you know, everybody on their correct sides, on their
Yes.
born sides. And so there could be a benefit to that. And then if Risto plays really well, maybe there's a chance, you could trade him. So you could build up his trade value as well. So that would
Right.
give
I
York a little bit more chance to get those offensive points if Risto's going to hang back a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point that not only could it help Cam York offensively, but if it sets up Risto for success in a way that we could trade him and get a good return on it, I think that's an important thing to do. And some of the stuff we've been talking about has really been how can York help everybody else and not help himself
Yeah.
in some ways. But I do want to say that that's also important because if he makes everybody else around him better, that adds to his cachet.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no question you want if players and other coaches and everybody start talking about Cam York, it's good for Cam York.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're hoping for a really good off season and a really great contract year for him
Hmm.
next year. And looking forward to talking about him more as we get into development camp. Well, not development camp for him, but as we
Right.
get into training camp for him in the fall. In the meantime, y'all have some questions you wanted us to answer or some comments that I think warranted some feedback. So we are going to get to them coming up next. All right, so our mailbag is quite full this week, and we're going to start off with an OHL playoff slash Memorial Cup question from Brian, or a comment here. I really can't take much out of that London series. Obviously, London was much better, but I'd like to see them play better competition. Barkey looked good, but man, does that dude need to bulk up? He looks like he's 12. I mean, yes,
Yeah, there's
but
no question. I mean, right now, I don't know his exact weight. I'm going to guess it's in the 160s.
yeah,
And
something like
because he
that.
was around 155, when the season started. And I know he's probably a little bigger than that. But yeah, he's going to, at 5'9", yeah, actually, he could probably get to, 175 as a max. And
Right.
I think he could do that. But you can't do that over one summer. I mean, you can, but you can't do it legally. So,
Right.
you're probably going to take the course of this summer and another summer to do that. So we're in agreement with you.
Yeah, I think so, but that's the good thing is that we have extra time with him.
You
We
got
have
the
this
time.
summer, all of next season, and next summer before you really wanna make an evaluation on that
Yeah,
front.
this summer, it's going to be one more year in London. And then he could go play in the AHL, and that's when those other days of the week he could lift weights, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
really a big thing. Same as when guys go to college.
exactly, that there's a more robust training program
Yes.
around it. Tempo717 commented in response to our segment on the draft eligible forwards overview related to the Flyers that we need help at right wing and left wing is good. Where do you see the Flyers as far as left wing versus right wing, and will that affect the drafting?
I don't think it will affect the drafting because some of these guys, at least one, will probably not be there, maybe two. I think they're better on the left side than the right side.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think, the thing is with forwards these days, you have to be flexible and be able
You
to
do.
play both sides.
You do. And some of them can. But yeah, I just look at it and I'm like, yeah. I mean, I know we have felt that left wing is just seems better for them.
Yeah.
But when
Yeah,
Mitchkov
I think
comes,
so.
that'll change. So.
Absolutely. Can't wait for that. At netcentric dash FK6EK responded to our player profile on Noah Cates, his season in review. He's smart. He's a good athlete. He can hit a little, but he just won't move the needle for the Flyers. He's not an offensive force and not tough. What do you think about that?
Well, I think if you take him out of the center role and you put him in like a third line winger, which I think he would be left wing, right? Um,
Yeah.
if you put him there, I think you get much more out of him. I do think, depending on his line mates as well, he is smart. He is a guy that's around the net, and I do think he could have a better year, like the year he was on pace for 2 years ago, than last year. But last year's second half, when he was healthy, was a pretty good indicator that hey, he was going to be a better player. So I think you're seeing that a little bit. So hang in there with him.
Yeah, I think that's the right approach that I would really wait until I don't know, like the non-all-star break this
Right.
upcoming season to really say, okay, we have a guy, we don't have a guy. at this point, because I think he needs to start off a season healthy and have like
It
3 or
makes a
4
big
months.
difference because I think,
Yeah.
I'm looking at, 12, 13, like the 38 points he had 2 years ago, he could probably make, 42, something like
Yeah.
that. I think that could be his norm, something around that.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think that, he is just, so smart, and even this commenter said as
I mean,
much. I think that
you can give him some power play time. Like if you put him on power play 2 once in a while, he will get you some points, and he is pretty good at it. So that's another thing. So
yeah,
yeah, the commenter's
and
right on a lot of these points.
yeah, I do think that I love seeing him behind the net on the power play dishing
Yeah.
off a puck. I think that's the right spot for him. Bill says, I worry about Torts giving Mitchkoff the frost slash brink treatment every time he makes a mistake and not wanting to play for Torts. Torts already said in his exit interview he's not changing his coaching style. Um, if we lose Mitchkoff because of this, Flyers will lose a lot of ticket sales for sure. Like, do you think there's a chance of that happening?
No, I don't think they're going to lose Mitch Cup over that, but I do think John will have to conform whether he says one thing to the media and does another. He's done that before, and I think he'll do that. I will it be a perfect seamless transition? No, probably not. But he's going to have to do it because there's going to be stipulations in Mitchkov's contract that are going to make him have to do certain things to allow this kid to play. So, he's going to probably do a lot of things that John likes. So
Yeah.
again, he'll fill in some of those blanks that John likes too. So, there's going to be some big positives too.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, whatever they need to do to behind the scenes to make it work, they are absolutely gonna do. And I think that, there are other guys on the team that could support Minchkoff here. And I think that the coaching staff is as a whole is just gonna have like a little bit more work to do. And that's okay.
Yeah. And,
I
and
think
just
it'll be worth it for what we'll get.
to answer the second part of his question, John was not the reason they lost the Cutter Gauthier thing. It's a
Yeah.
long, drawn out thing as to what happened with all of that, but John wasn't a part of that.
Yeah, I don't think he had anything to do with it either. Our last question here comes from Nate. Who do you think will be the Flyers' biggest rival or roadblock to success over the next 3 to 5 years in the rebuild?
Well, so I think right now the Rangers are like 2 steps ahead. So I think it could be the Devils. The Devils seem like the one that's just ahead of them, and now they've got a goalie, and so, like, they could be the ones that are just inching ahead, and you've gotta raise your level to them because they've got loaded defense, uh, and if they get any kind of goaltending with Jack Hughes and the offense they have, I think that's the team.
Yeah, it is interesting because that always seems to happen, right? Where you are in a rebuild and you have a plan and you're executing the plan just fine, but somebody else comes along and just takes all
They've
that
been
work
doing it
away
just a
from you.
little bit longer, and they're doing a good job. Like, you look at the talent on their roster, right? They've just been doing it a little longer.
Right, and I think that there is a possibility, I'm not sure, but there is a possibility the Flyers could have a season next season like the Devils had this season, where
Mhm.
they're now the injury situation that the Devils had was, I think, an anomaly, and that had a lot to do with it. But I just think from an outcome and a wins and losses outcome, it could happen even though a lot of positive things happen for development. And
Right.
I don't want people to be upset about that because I think the Devils are doing it right, and they could take a bigger step next season. Now, we say that every year and then sometimes they don't, but I think that it is, a really important thing to keep in mind that success looks like different things
Yeah, I
for the
mean,
Flyers.
if the Capitals and the Islanders, and the Penguins start to drop a bit in the next
Mhm.
year or so, then the Devils and probably the Blue Jackets are going to rise because the Blue Jackets, have been adding a lot of good young talent. They're going to get more this year. Goudreau's still there, Fantilli's there, and they have some guys. So, I think that's where things might lie in the next 2 to 3.
Yep, and we just want the Flyers to be one step ahead, and I think, as we get closer to the draft, that's going to be one way that they'll try and stay that one step ahead. Really looking forward to more of those conversations, which we will have on tomorrow's show. We're going to look at some of the other national team development program guys that we haven't talked about yet and dig into what they could bring to the Flyers. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you want your question answered on the show, like we just did today, you can let us know via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube that's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available in the free Fire TV channels app. Have a great day, everyone.